Hey everybody, I am here in my bathroom. And I thought I would do something different, a get ready with me situation type of deal today where I talk about the books that my students hate and some of the short stories that they absolutely despise. So join me as I put some makeup on this face that needs it so badly right now. And let's talk about books that my students, my high school students, cannot stand. All right, first I'm going to use some of this foundation from Walmart. It is a offshoot of Revolution makeup, and it's called Love Revolution. And this is like literally a $4 makeup, and I'm not going to be talking about my makeup throughout this whole thing, but this one's so awesome. I'm not going to do like a whole skin prep thing. I've already put moisturizer on, and since I'm just going to be in the house, I'm not worried about all that glamorous stuff today. So the first book that would probably be number one on my students literally cannot stand this. They wish that I would never teach it again, is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. So good old Nate. All right. So I tried literally 4 years in a row, this year being my last year, to teach The Scarlet Letter in different ways, where students would love it, where they would understand all of the symbolism, where they could understand how it could be a Bible allegory, because I do teach at a Christian school. So all of the literature that I teach, I need to bring in some sort of biblical aspect. So, and The Scarlet Letter is obviously rich in that, right? Right. And in case you're not familiar with The Scarlet Letter, where have you been? But it's okay. It's all right. It does feature a woman named Hester Prynne, and we see her at the beginning of the book, and we know that she has been put in jail and is now on display for the whole town. So she is on display on the scaffolding for everyone to see. Everyone knows that she has committed the sin of adultery because she has a child in her arm and her husband is not there. Now we know that she was married, but her husband was supposed to join her from overseas when they moved to England, but he never came. Okay. So we know that she committed adultery because she had a baby after years of not having a husband. Right. So she is then told that she has to wear a scarlet letter, a literal letter A that she sews, the irony in that, on her chest for the rest of her life. What does the man who she committed adultery with have to do? Nothing, because she will not declare who it was. She is bearing the sins of others. So we have some symbolism there. Anyway, I'm starting to go too in depth. I'll fast forward. So anyway, the story is basically looking at how Hester lives this life of being branded a sinner that everyone can see, although obviously everyone's a sinner, right? And how she is staying true to her stance of not telling who the guy is who committed adultery with her. And then we get another plot twist. Her husband comes back from England and befriends the guy that we realize committed adultery with her. But he doesn't tell anybody, and he swears her to secrecy for her not to tell anyone that he is her husband. All right, so there's some juicy bits. Like, students, why do you not love this? Well, I know why. The writing is very tedious. Okay, it takes a lot of concentration to get through it. So I have tried doing just selections and then watching the movie version for parts of the novel, leaving it out. I've tried obviously doing the whole novel. I've tried doing audiobook part of it in class, and they really just don't get into it. And now the little tidbit that I gave you, wouldn't you get into that? Like, it is very soap opera-esque. There's so much symbolism in it. It is just, oh, it's so rich. In case you can't tell, I love it tremendously. But after 4 years of teaching it, here's what I did this past year. I did the movie and maybe 2 or 3 chapters, okay? Because I really wanted them to be introduced to this puritanical time period. So I also added in The Crucible by Arthur Miller. And we didn't do like a full Crucible unit. In fact, did we read it or did we watch the movie? I can't remember. We may have just watched selections from the movie and then read passages as well. And so I thought, well, maybe that will help them really get a better meaning from the Scarlet Letter, because there's so much backstory that you can get from the Crucible. You can tie them in, whatever. They didn't like the Crucible either. Like, if you've never read the Crucible, it takes place during the beginning of the Salem witch trials, and it's not about witchcraft at all. It is about a mob mentality. It's about revenge. It's about sinful nature. It's about the innocents. It's about women. It's about a whole bunch of stuff. And I thought that this would help get them into the Scarlet Letter. Surprise, surprise, it did not. So this is the first time that I have ever actually decided to scrap an entire unit that I'm doing, and I'm looking for something else. In fact, I think I decided on what I'm doing and I wrote it down, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So my students have prevailed on that. I know there are a lot of English teachers out there who have said you need to do it regardless of what your students think. But here's my thought, that I am this vessel, if you will, for getting my students to like reading, be lifelong readers. And if I set them up, especially how I was teaching it as the very first unit in our American literature class. So if I'm setting it up to where they hate and despise what they're reading, then they're not going to even want to pick up the books that we read later on in the American literature class, nonetheless want to be readers continually throughout their lives. So I'm scrapping the Scarlet Letter. On to the next one, that book that my students despised, and that was Beowulf. Honestly, I'm not surprised. Who out there loves Beowulf? Please comment below if you do. I have an appreciation for Beowulf, and it's an appreciation. I know I'm going to do some lip scrub here, so girl, in just a second. My lips are so dry. Okay. I have an appreciation for Beowulf. And I think my students should have an appreciation for Beowulf. And in all honesty, I did not make them read the whole poem. Most of it, I would say about 75% of it. And they simply could not get into it. And I understand that it's a language. It's not like we were reading it in Old English. It could be the poem style. A lot of them are not used to reading poetry, even though this isn't poetry in the sense of like sonnets or limericks or iambic pentameter. Wow, words. But they're still not used to reading it, which makes me think that I need to keep it in the curriculum so that they do get that exposure. What do you think? Okay. The next piece of literature that they do not like, they have not liked in the past, was a surprise to me. And this one was, drumroll please, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. My brows are horrendous. I have not waxed them in a good long while. Okay, back to The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Most of you are probably very familiar with this short story. If you're not, ooh, it's hard to do brows on camera. If you're not, go ahead and get you a copy. I'm sure it's available in PDF form on the internet. It's maybe 5 pages long, but it follows the premise of there's this special day going on and you're not quite sure what is happening, but you know that family names are being drawn out of a bucket. The whole town is gathered there. There's a sense of foreboding in the air. And the last name of a family is being drawn out of the bucket. And then once that family name is drawn, every member of the family's names goes into this bucket. It's not a real bucket. And then one family member's name is pulled out. And then we end the story with people picking up stones and throwing those stones at that person. Okay? You would think, or at least I would think, that that's something that my students would think was really cool, right? Like, cool, people are stoning people for no reason, which there is a reason. And when I teach it, we talk about what was going on in the country that caused Shirley Jackson to want to write that. And interviews with Shirley Jackson point to the fact that she really wanted to write this because we were putting Japanese Americans in internment camps for no reason, just based on their heritage. And so this short story really helps you delve into the symbolism and almost the allegorical nature of that. So I really enjoy it for a little quick history lesson as well. This is the first time I'm using this Wet n Wild Always Naked palette, so we'll see how it does. And honestly, I thought my students would get a kick out of it. They usually like short stories. They usually like stories that have a shocking reveal, a shocking twist. But what I found was that even when I was doing in-class reading, my my students were not understanding what was going on, because Shirley Jackson does not write it in such a way where she just says, "Hey, they're stoning people because it's a tradition," and all that fun stuff. She makes you work a little bit for it, but it's not that difficult, I don't think. Um, so I always have to explain it to the students, and then they think it's cool. But by then, the shock value really isn't there because they're not experiencing it while they're reading it. They're just experiencing it from my explanation. And so they're not really getting the literary value of what Jackson was doing there. So I'm going to keep it. I may just need to move it up a grade level. I think what I was doing was introducing it to students who were a little too young. And when I say young, I mean eighth graders. And maybe they're just not ready on that reading comprehension level yet to infer what's going on in the scenario that Shirley Jackson writes about. But it's one that I definitely plan on keeping. I think it's really awesome. And yeah, I'm not going to get rid of Shirley Jackson's work. We also read I think it's called The Landlady. And we read that one in a class that's mainly full of juniors, maybe sophomores and juniors, and they eat that up. If you haven't read that, that's another one of her works that kind of has an open ending, and I have them write in their own ending to it, and they love it. They love it. Okay, and then I'm going to talk about two other pieces that they don't like. One is The Life You Save May Be Your Own. I don't know why I totally blanked on that. And this one is by Flannery O'Connor, who is one of my favorite authors. Let's see, that goal does not work. Let's see if this one will work. Um, she was a Southern writer, and her caricature portrayal of people in the South is magnificent. Oh, and since we live in the South, obviously you can tell by my accent. I I just devour her work so much. I love her work. And so this story is about Lucy Nell and Lucy Nell. So we have the mom and the daughter. And we learn that the daughter is slow. She has some sort of mental handicap and she doesn't speak except for a few words. And then one day a man, Tom Shiftlett is what I said, comes to their home and says that he can help around the house, that he can help around with the farm, da 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 da. And we finally realize that he is trying to obviously weasel his way into marrying the younger Lucy Nell. And the older Lucy Nell is fine with that. They marry. He takes her on the honeymoon, and I'm not going to spoil the ending. Okay. My students do not like this story for some reason. I think it's because some of it is outlandish. And when I say that, it is a caricature. Why can I not say that word today? Caricature portrayal. And understanding that really helps you understand why she wrote it, understand a better appreciation for it. There's also a lot of symbolism, and I bring in biblical symbolism as well into it. And by the time we finish it, they like it, but they think it's very weird. So I don't know if I'd put that in the category of things they hate or just think weird. Another piece of literature that they do not like, but they don't hate, is The Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now, I wish that we could read 1984, but it's not going to happen. Also, I'm not going to put on eyeliner because I am just hanging out at the house. So I don't have my lashes on either. I look very naked to myself, but we're not doing it. When you have a sick kid, this is enough. Okay, so I've never put on mascara on camera. This is really weird, guys. I have like no lashes. Okay, so what it was, Animal Farm. We talk about the Russian Revolution because obviously that's what Orwell was using as his allegorical basis for the Animal Farm. And they've never heard of the Russian Revolution. So I think it's part of that is that they don't have a large depth of understanding. So next year I'm going to spend a little more time explaining the Russian Revolution. I think this year I just did one day and we jumped into it. I think it may need its own week, even though that seems a little overkill for a literature class. If you don't understand the background, it's really hard to grasp it as you go. Now, I think they enjoyed actually reading it, or at least most of it. I think they got kind of over it by 75% in because it does get a little bit monotonous, repetitive, at least in my point of view. And so they didn't hate it. They didn't love it. Now, what they did love was their end of the quarter project where they had to create a life-size poster or a life-size cutout of a character in the animal farm, and then they had to decorate it in all sorts of ways and parameters that I set forth. And these were amazing. Some were like huge, the size of an adult, like the pig. It was they really had fun with it. So I think that I'm going to keep Animal Farm. It's a great way to study allegory and see how things can relate in literature to actual real life stuff in the world, as it should. Okay, I'm gonna finish off the look with this Halo Glow by Elf that I saw Toddy talking about, and she loved it. I'm not a powder girl, so we'll see. I kind of like staying dewy, but yeah, I probably shouldn't have used that. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Who cares? All right. So all of that to say this. First of all, if you are a student, if you were a student, most of you have been students at one point in time, what was there a book that you really didn't like that your teachers made you read? Did that have an effect on you and how you thought about literature? And if you are a teacher, what do you think? Do you think I should keep in all the stuff that the students hate? Do you agree with my thinking about maybe conceding for one or two pieces? Now, keep in mind, I'm still having them read hard stuff. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and water it down just because they don't like something. So, what were your least favorite books to read in high school? I remember one of mine was Frankenstein, although I love it now. I also could not stand Jane Eyre. It's a favorite now. I read it almost every year. So maybe there is something to pushing students to read books that you know that they will find usefulness, they will find insight in, they will find new skills in. And I think that I've discovered as a new art teacher how to do that a little better while preserving most of the literature that I want to keep in, but maybe taking in just those few that overall every student is just bogged down by. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, if you want to know more about what books my students like the best, then make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be doing that video very soon. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on books in general, my favorite books, my favorite thrillers, my favorite Gothic novels, just my thoughts in general, please subscribe. I'm a poor English teacher just trying to make an extra buck. And I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you on the flip side. My kids say that's not cool to say anymore. I'll see you later. Bye.